What is up, guys? So today I'm going to be doing the third and final finale part of how I got into throwing big swim baits. If you guys have not seen the first and second video, I'll leave the links down in the description below if you guys want to go check those out as well. Now, in the last video, we left off in 2014. In today's video, we're going to just jump right into about a quarter way through 2015. Now, in 2015, I was fishing with my buddy Manuel a lot. We were fishing just a bunch of urban spots. The fishing was kind of slow. The fishing was kind of just We were catching some decent fish, anywhere from like 2 to 4 pounds, either on like jerk baits or crankbaits or swim baits, at a few different urban spots. And we fell in love with this one urban spot just because, I knew that there was some big fish in it. I'd caught some pretty nice fish in it previously, so we kept going up there, hoping they'll run into a big fish. And so late April, we got up there one nice day. It was a bunch of cloud coverage in the morning. It kind of broke up and came back. And I think we caught like 2 or 3 fish before. They were in a post-spawn transition. They were grading fry all over the place. And so, we were catching just a bunch of, big-headed skinny fish at the moment. But it was just fish on the swim bait, so that was good for us. And so we're working our way around the pond. We get up to one of the top ponds, and I end up seeing this fish, sitting pretty shallow, looking like it's, waiting to ambush something along these rocks. And so we go up here, I make a cast on it, and immediately I get a reaction. It follows back, and then it kind of starts gliding with my Hinkle shad that I was throwing at the time. And I'm like, man, that's a really, really big fish. And like, it clicked in my mind, it looked just like David's 9-pounder. How it was like so keyed in on a bait that it didn't like see me or didn't care about it. It just wanted to eat the bait. So I make another cast in there, and I see it come up to the bait again, and then this happens.
How close?
Really close.
Wait. Boom! Oh, God. What do you want me to do? Dude, wait. Got her! Oh my God! I'm a Hinkle, boys! I'm a Hinkle! Oh my God! Look at that fish! Oh my God! Oh shit! Dude! Oh my God! Okay,
Let me see your mouth, dude. Let me see your mouth.
Oh my God! Alright, turn it off.
So I ended up, as you guys can see, I caught that fish. It went 7 pounds, 3 ounces. At the time, that was my personal best. That was the biggest bass I'd ever caught. And a 7-pounder for an urban spot like that is very, very rare. Really, on any urban spot, that's a pretty big fish. That fish really made me want to chase after these bigger, badder fish. And that was just heart racing. And so from there, I really caught that big bass bug. And so after that, we kept fishing different spots here and there, just jumping around, either swim baits, top water, jerk bait, stuff like that. And then come about June-ish, I met up with a buddy of mine. His name was Captain Chris Ramirez at one of the urban spots. And I noticed him right away just because he was throwing a big swim bait. And down here at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of kids throwing these big swim baits, especially at the urban spots. So I go up to the kid, and I'm like, yo, is that a depth 250 that you're throwing? And I take a better look at it. It's actually a homemade swim bait. A depth 250, or at least imitated by, made out of wood. The entire shape of it looked like a 250, so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And so he went on to tell me how he made his own homemade slammers, Hinkle trouts, depth 250s, and other baits like that. And I'm like, wow, that's actually kind of cool. They didn't swim like that great, but it wasn't just like terrible trash. And so he seemed like a cool kid. So we started talking more, fishing more, and eventually he's like, yo, I've got a 10-foot little John boat if you ever want to take it out to like Canyon or something. I'm like, sure, let's go do that, I had just picked up my first ever Hinkle trout, and I was super stoked on it. And we go out to Canyon the first time with me and him, and we load the boat in the back of my truck, strap it down, and go out to Canyon. Now at Canyon, there's a little part that's kind of cut off from boats with like motors or electricity. You have to row in there. And so we took off the trolling motor and we go back there, and my buddy Chris, he ended up catching a fish on his homemade slammer, which was really, really sick to see. And that was the only fish we caught. It was like a little 2.5, 3-pound fish on the slammer. But we're like, yo, we got to come back out here because we saw a bunch of big fish activity. we were seeing fish anywhere from like 3 pounds all the way up to 8 pounds. I'm like, man, this is really dope, because at the time I hadn't really fished canyon a whole lot of times. Besides a few times, like maybe once every 2 to 3 months, I would go out with a buddy and we'd fish it. And for some reason, the lakes didn't like me back then. I would go out there, I would have fish like 5 to 7 pounds just crushing my bait at the boat, or I'd see it off, and for some reason I just couldn't hook them. So I didn't really have that much success at the lakes until 2015. So we go back out at Canyon, I think like a week later. I've got my Hinkle trout, I got a Hinkle shad. My buddy Chris, he had an 8-inch triple trout and like his homemade baits. So we're fishing the main lake now with the trolling motor, and we're going around early morning, and it was really, really slow. And it wasn't until like almost middle of the day that we finally get some action off this point. And I was throwing the Hinkle trout, he was throwing his triple trout, and he wasn't really getting much action on his triple trout. I think I had a few followers on the Hinkle at the time. And we come up to this point, and all of a sudden this happens.
He's hot. He's on it. Oh my god!
No!
Dude!
Did you get that?
Dude, I think so!
Oh my god, dude!
Dude!
No!
Oh my god!
No!
Headshot!
Now, of course, we didn't end up catching that fish. I had that fish actually bite 2 more times on my bait. That fish was just so mad, or just something was just keyed in for that fish to try and eat my bait. And at the time, I had my hooks all wrong, my split rings, everything was just bad on that Hinkle. And so I was like, dang, that was like a 7 or 8 pound fish easily. You know, it just crushed my Hinkle at the boat. And so we keep going down, and we're just getting more and more fish. I had probably 5 or 6 other fish, anywhere from 6 to 7 pounds, just absolutely annihilated my Hinkle. I'd watch my bait, you know, slide, and then a fish just comes up, smokes it, shakes, and then just goes. And I'm like, what was that, you know? I couldn't hook any fish. Then we're kind of about to leave. We're like, yo, let's just go up to this point up here, and then we'll bounce. Because the wind was strong, we were losing juice on the battery, so we're like, we got to get off the lake, or unless, you know, you want to try and roll all the way back to this strong, strong wind. So we get up there. I tell my buddy to tie on my Hinkle shad, because he wasn't getting anything on that triple trout. And so he ties on the shad, and as he's tying on the shad, I hook my first ever Hinkle trout fish. It was like a little 4-pounder. It smacked it on a long cast. And I'm like, oh, get the net, get the freaking net, dude. And so he puts down the Hinkle shad, grabs the net, nets it. I'm like, all right, it's not a big one. It's not like the fish we've been seeing, but just a fish on the Hinkle was cool. So we took a quick picture of it, put it back, and then we start working back up to the point because we drifted down with the wind. And there's this overhanging tree. My buddy with the Hinkle shad just throws it right under, gets 2 glides, and is like, got one, dude, I got one. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. And I throw my rod down, I get the net, and I net his fish for him. So we both ended up catching just 1 fish apiece, both of them 4-pounders on new baits. And from there, we're like, dude, we might have unlocked something majorly key right now. And so we go out again a week later, and it's kind of the same deal, just a bunch of bites, a bunch of big fish, just, it was absolutely insane. And so after that, my buddy was like, you know what, forget this triple trout, forget my homemades, I'm actually going to buy a real depths. And so my buddy buys the depths, and we're like, all right, let's go try this bait out, let's go catch a fish on it. So we go out, first trip out with it, he catches his personal best. It was like a 6.5, and another 4-pounder. And that same day, I caught 3 fish on the Hinkle trout, a 6 and 2 5. And at the time, that was my biggest bag of swimbait fish and fishing just in general of all time. It was about 27.25 pounds for our best 5. And of course, in that little 10-foot John boat, we didn't have a live well, so we couldn't take, a pretty cool looking picture. But it was all good. Got the fish back in the water. Everything was good. And so after that, we're like, dude, this is the craziest fishing we've ever experienced in our entire lives. So we're just getting fish anywhere from like 4 pounds all the way up to like 10 pounds, just slamming our baits. And since 2015, I've never seen a bite like that ever since. That was honestly just remarkable. Just like I can't really describe it because it was so crazy. And not a whole lot of people experienced it because a lot of people don't fish here in the summer. It's 110 out. We're out there middle of the day with no shade or anything on this little 10-foot John boat just baking in 110 degrees, but we were catching fish, and that's what made it worth it at the time. And so every week we just go out to Canyon, and back then gas was pretty cheap, so I'd just be filling up my tank. Canyon from my house back then was about like an hour-ish, and then we had to go pick up the boat. That would take another 20 minutes or so. So it was kind of a far drive for us, but it was worth it every single time. And that whole 2015 season, from that summer all the way into winter, was just amazing good fishing. And with most of the footage that we got in 2015, I was able to make my first ever swimbait project called Swimbait Fishing in the Wild West. Now, most of that project is filled with footage from 2015 and a little bit of 2016, but mostly just 2015. And that was just back when the fishing was really good. And so we got some really, really dope footage. We had action, left and right, fish eating at the boat on a far cast, just this and that and this way. And it was just amazing. It was just some of the best fishing I've, ever experienced in my life. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, please chase your dreams. Do yourself a favor and chase your dreams.